Start, Maharaj. So,
Okay.
we'll. So first I'll try to give us a short introduction, Maharaj, and then
Yes.
we'll start. And then we can start with Shanti Mantras, Maharaj.
That should be good.
Yes, Maharaj. Okay. So we'll do Shanti Mantras first. Do introduction. Okay. Okay. So basically, this Vedanta study circle has been started mostly by Sivateja, and he has been inspired by a similar student organization which runs at IIT Madras, that is known as Vivekananda Study Circle. So it's been there, it's been running at IIT Madras for 18 years now, and Swami Atmashraddhananda has been mentoring that student organization for 10 years now, and he is currently the editor of Vedanta Kesari, and he has also written quite a few books. He's also a member of Institutional Ethics Committee at IIT Madras. So I just tried to give a short introduction of him. And for the Vedanta study circle here, so we have finished reading Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga, and then we also finished reading Walking the Walk, which is a commentary of Swami Vivekananda's Karma Yoga. So this session is intended to be a concluding discourse on our discussion on Karma Yoga so far. So Swamiji will be talking for some time first, and then we'll open it for questions, and then we'll close it. Okay. So we can start. Shanti Mantras. Maharaj, so we can start with Shanti Mantras.
Yes. You will have Shanti Mantra or?
You can do it, Maharaj.
I don't know which you are used to.
Same as study circle, Maharaj.
So we'll have Sarnavavatu.
Yes.
And then
Asatoma.
Asatoma.
Yes, Maharaj.
And then Purnamada.
Yes, Maharaj.
So are you going to repeat after me, or shall I just chant them and you will listen to it?
We'll repeat, Maharaj. We'll repeat after you.
Okay. So generally in IIT we, begin with long Om, which means Om chanted in a long way. So after every pass you can repeat. So we'll begin with that. Om Sahana Bhavatu. Sahano Bhunattu. Aviryam Karavavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu. Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Asatoma Sadgamaya
Asatoma Sadgamaya.
Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya
Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya.
Mrityormam Mritam Gamaya
Mrityormamritamgamaya.
Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamidam
Purnamada Purnamidam Purnamudachyate.
Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate.
Om Shanti Shanti
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah.
Sarve santu nirayah
Sarve santu niramaya.
Sarve bhadrani pashyantu
Sarve bhadrani pashyantu.
ma kaschita dukkha bhaga bhavet
Ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet.
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Namaste to everyone. Glad that we are having this session. I hope I am audible. Yes.
Maharaj, we are muting our microphone for some time so that there is no disturbance.
Right, right,
We'll unmute whenever you ask some question or anything.
right. I understand. It's very nice that Vedanta Study Circle is functioning there almost on same lines as the Vivekananda Study Circle here. The Vivekananda Study Circle in IIT Madras, as Ram introduced, has been in existence or been doing its work for last 18 years. We'll have our annual inaugural function next month. We have fixed it up on 20th. And before that, sometimes on 9th or so, we will have our annual Vivekananda Heritage Walk, when we take the freshers to the places connected with Swamiji in Chennai. Not all places, a few of them, including coming to the Mutt. Now, we do have a discussion on Karma Yoga. We, of course, do not always take up a book like as you are doing. We try to make it, every session we have number of subjects. So let's say a semester, even semester or odd semester. So we have a group of volunteers, we gather and then we decide which should be more appropriate, which subject should be more appropriate for a particular week. So for example, sometimes we might have it on a subject like mind and its control, sometimes on Karma Yoga, sometimes on some aspect of Swamiji's life. But you are following a book that's very nice, and you have taken up the Karma Yoga book of Swamiji. And you know, Karma Yoga is, Swamiji gave 8 lectures on Karma Yoga, and those lectures were noted down and later made into this book. Originally, the plan of the book was slightly different, which means the order in which the lectures have been given. The 8 lectures, so the order was slightly different. Something like 4 lectures were meant for the beginners and 4 for the advanced students. But with Swamiji's consent, again there was some change done. And whatever is there, we have the Karma Yoga book with us, and now it's available in almost all Indian languages, all literary languages, not the simple dialogues. And Karma Yoga has so much we have to learn from that. Unlike other yogas, say, Swamiji's contribution it is that we have the 4 yogas like Raja Yoga, the Jnana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga, and Karma Yoga. Though these yogas existed earlier in this form, but it is Swamiji who really categorized them, and he gave lectures individually on all these 4 yogas. So unlike the other yogas, the Karma Yoga is, it doesn't require any special practice. For example, if you have to do the practice of Raja Yoga, you have to sit, you have to meditate, which means you have to at least try to meditate, you have to close the eyes and try to withdraw the mind, and it's a specific practice. But in Karma Yoga it is not so. It is just whatever you are doing, whatever you are engaged in, that action is converted into a form of yoga. So one of our Swamijis actually used to, in a lighter sense, he used to say, we should rename the book Karma Yoga to Jivan Yoga, because it concerns life itself, because action means life. In Karma Yoga there are basically 2 approaches. First thing which we take very clearly, on which the whole Karma Yoga is built, is that karma is very much needed in life. But we, in our real self, in the real sense of the self, what we are, the I within, the real I within, it is different from all works that we do. There is a self within, the Atman within. Because the word Atman is very often used. The people coming from other parts of India, they use the word Atma. It means the same, of course. Atman is the Sanskrit word. So the Atman, the term Atman comes from a root called At. Now At means that which is eternal, that which is, which has got no division in terms of time. Oh, it was or it will be. It is. That's it, and it is eternal. And Atman is our real self. In one of his lectures, I think Kumbakonam lecture, a lecture given in the Kumbakonam city, Swamiji says that the term Atman has got no translation. Actually, it cannot be translated. But the nearest translation is done by the German philosophers who have given the word self. So now we use this word very often. We use it very frequently, the term self. But Atman itself is not just self. Of course, it is very nearest term. Atman is something which always is present in every one of us. It is our deepest core. And the nature of Atman is, it is eternal, it is unattached, it is unaffected by anything, it is the source of all joy, it is the source of all happiness. Whenever we become happy, actually it is a reflection of the Atman in some way, though it's very often a very poor way or a very dim reflection of the real joy within. When it comes to our life, each one of our life, we have different goals in life, and these goals keep changing. The goal which a person had when he was a child, so he may have an ambition in general, but when the goal he had, immediate goal, is so different from when he grows up. And these goals keep changing. If you are in 4th standard, you want to go to the 5th standard, and then to 10th standard, and then you want to get into 12th, and then IIT or some such professional course or any other non-professional course. So the goals are constantly shifting. They are as if moving. And we keep looking for satisfaction, happiness, joy, fulfillment of all these goals. In our scriptures, in the tradition of Sanatana Dharma, we say the goal of human life is human life. In fact, the entire existence, but specifically the human life, is that we should know the source from where we come and to realize ourselves. To know that the source is to realize oneself. Why we are here? Why are we born? And what's the purpose of all these things that we do in our life? So our scriptures say that all these are like a training ground. It's like we undergo a training course. Now you're all undergoing some course. So it's like a whole life is like a course. We're undergoing a course. And what is the end product of the course? The end product of the course should be that I realize that whatever happiness I require, whatever I thought was somewhat missing in my life, is already there within me. That self-fulfillment, that inner sense of satisfaction, that is what actually the ultimate goal of life is. The story is told of a musk deer. I don't know how many of you have seen the musk deer. You can possibly see it in one of the YouTube videos if it is there. So musk is a very strong, a substance having strong fragrance, and it develops in the navel of a particular species of the deers. So that's called a musk deer. And it is said, it's there in India, many places the musk deers are found. It is said that when the musk develops in the navel of the musk deer, it sends out a very strong fragrance. And the fragrance can go to almost half a kilometer. That much is the strength of that fragrance. And the deer very much wants to know the source of that fragrance. He is searching for it, and he runs around and runs around and around. Finally, they say he dies in the attempt. The musk is right within him. So when we are searching for happiness, we are like that deer. We are searching it for in outside world, in different things, but the source actually is within us. Now, to discover that source, or to discover the source of all happiness as something which is within us, is what the purpose of all yogas is. Yogas, whether we take up bhakti, or we take up jnana yoga, or raja yoga, or now this karma yoga, the purpose is to train the mind, to make ourselves so well prepared or competent that we are able to perceive that which is within us. So karma yoga in that sense is it's not about doing more work. It's not about just being busy. Though, fine, that's also part of karma, that you are busy, you are doing things, and one should be active. But karma yoga is not about being active. Karma yoga is about the attitude with which we carry on our activity. So when we say the attitude, it actually means the purpose, ultimate purpose for which we are doing this. We have read in the Karma Yoga lectures of Swamiji, I think the very first lecture Swamiji mentions that people work for different purposes. They work, they take up action, or they do things in life for different motives. Somebody may be doing it for becoming famous, and somebody else might be doing it to become more powerful. Maybe he wants to become a big political power or administrative something. Or someone else might be doing it, as Swamiji makes a mention about, that there's a sect among the Muslims where they start write their life journey by building a tomb for themselves. So they work that they should have a very good tomb when they die. So for that they start working. These are all various motives. People work for money, for fame, for name, and they also work for pleasures. In the Indian tradition, actually, this is not considered bad. It is said it is one of the things, it's one of the purusharthas. There are four purusharthas. So one of the purusharthas is artha and kama. Two purusharthas are artha and kama. But they should be guided by dharma. So when we inaugurate them, we always say dharma first. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Dharma first because it is the dharma which should be given the basis, the higher values. Actually, dharma is a very specific term. It is not religion. Dharma does not mean religion. Religion is only one derivative meaning of the term dharma. Dharma means that which holds you together. Dharayate iti dharma. That which holds you together. So, if that something is not there, you will not be held together. So, everything has got a dharma. For example, fire has got dharma. What is the dharma of the fire? Fire dharma is to burn. If you take the power of burning out from fire, it is no longer fire. Similarly, water, it wets. That is its dharma. Or the air dries or carries things. That is the dharma of the air. Just as the elements of nature have got their dharma, the created beings also have some dharma. For example, a tree has a particular dharma. Or a rose has got a particular dharma. But what is the dharma of a human being? So it's called the manava dharma. That's something which holds a man together. And that is actually the sum total of all values. The sum total of all higher values is what we call as dharma. It includes justice, it includes honesty, it includes love, it is actually it's based on what we call as the principle of unselfishness. It is that which is manifesting through all these various virtues. So these are considered, four purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So kama is basically wanting to enjoy things, and man begins his journey with that only. He thinks, I want to enjoy life, I want to enjoy things. And in order to enjoy, he has to have the means for enjoyment. So he should have money, he should have power, he should have a healthy body, he should have the freedom to enjoy what he wants to enjoy. But after enjoyment, this pleasure drive is very strong within us. So when the pleasure drive reaches a particular point, then the man starts asking higher questions. He finds that there is a certain transience, a certain being temporary about everything. That is where the journey begins, the journey for the yoga begins. So we have to keep this point very clear in mind, that Karma Yoga begins when a person has discovered a very high motive for life as worthy of life. It doesn't say that the money is bad. It doesn't say things with the words are bad. They are insufficient. They are insufficient. They are there, but they are insufficient. They do not give me eternal happiness. They give me happiness, but it is accompanied by a lot of anxieties, a lot of things like it will not be there after some time. So that fear is there along with that happiness. So I want something which doesn't change, which is ever present there. That is when we discover the highest motive for the Karma Yoga. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 3rd chapter, we have a whole discussion about Karma Yoga. In fact, that chapter is called the Karma Yoga chapter. All the chapters in the Gita are named, not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but each chapter has got a name. For example, the first chapter, it is named as Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So Arjuna's Vishada, or the depression or a state of being unhappy, that is considered it's a way of yoga. And the third chapter is about Karma Yoga. The Karma Yoga chapter begins with this question. Arjuna asked this question to Krishna that, look, you have been glorifying knowledge of the Atman. At the same time, you are asking me to work. Don't you, you are trying to, as if contradicting yourself. And on one side, you speak of the glory of the Atman and the glory of the self and the glory of the knowledge of the self. And the other side, you want me to do things in the world which are, after all, not about Atman, which are actually doing things which are changing, ever changing. Since I am always engaged in a world which is ever changing, it means I am contradicting my nature which is never which never changes, the Atman within. So you seem to contradict. Please clarify. Then Sri Krishna speaks of the importance of understanding how we can attain that knowledge of the self. He says it's not just about you listen about the self and you get to know about it. You have to work for it. So essentially you have to prepare yourself for that. First we hear about the Atman. First we come to know about our self in a way that either we have heard from a scripture or we have heard from a teacher, or our own understanding has to some degree led to that understanding, that conclusion that no, there is something within me which never dies. Now you are all in America. Possibly some of you have read the book Peace Pilgrim. If you have not read, I would suggest that you please read it. It's about a lady who lived in America around 30 years back. In 1984, she passed away in a road accident. So she came from a family, and she, at the age of 25 or 26, she decided to just walk across America, trying to spread the message of peace, born of maturity, or a mature approach to life, not just a political agenda that there should be peace, but it was a spiritual kind of a message which she was trying to give. In her book, she did not write a book, somebody compiled her teachings or her sayings and made it into a book. So in her, that book, it's called Peace Pilgrim book, you will come across this thing that she mentions about the Atman. She says this body is after all a clay garment, a garment made of clay. It will one day get disintegrated. But that which is within us does not. It will not. And to know that is what is we are all trying to attain through various actions. So the third chapter of the Gita begins by saying this, that when you speak of the Karma Yoga, when you want to attain the Atman, you have to first take up action in the right spirit. Now what is right spirit? Here Swamiji's Karma Yoga comes to our help. He says there are two approaches. One is the Jnana approach and there is the Bhakti approach. Which means Bhakti approach is basically I offer everything to my Lord. So I have a complete faith that there is Ishvara or God who is managing everything, who is seeing everything. And all these activities which we see are actually God who has manifested himself. You know, it is not that God one day decided that I will do the creation, I will create the creation, or I will make the creation, and he got some material from somewhere, some outsourcing he did, and made something out of it. That's not our idea. Our idea is that God himself became everything. That's Srashtra. He did that. And then he entered into it. That's what we believe in. It is God who has become everything. So when we speak of bhakti, we say, oh Lord, everything belongs to you. So I am doing something and for example speaking to you or you are listening to me. It is all possible because of pure grace. So let me do in a spirit of submission, a spirit of humility. I offer everything to you. I don't try to appropriate all its results to me. I say it all belongs to you after all. For example, if I offer a flower to the Lord, I go to the temple, I take a flower with me and some sweets with me. God does not need any flower from me actually, because He already has. The flowers He has created, and it is He who is now being offered. No? So why do we do then? Why do we carry flowers? In order to develop understanding that we are one with God. When we do puja, it is not God who needs the puja, it is we who need the puja. Because it is we who have to offer ourselves to God by removing the false sense of separation from the God, the ego. The ego has to go, for that all the actions are done. So this is called bhakti. That I offer everything to the Lord, so bhakti approach to the Lord. So the famous Shiv Mahimana Stotra says that whatever I do, O Lord, is your worship. So whether I walk around, that is like doing pradakshina to you, going around the temple, pradakshina to you, or whether I eat something, or whether, and whatever actions I do, it's a worship of you. So this is the Karma Yoga from the Bhakti approach. The other approach is the Jnana approach. It is a little more challenging. The Jnana approach is more challenging because it requires a very strong conviction first of all and a very strong willpower. We can combine both these approaches also, but to begin with, let us understand what is Jnana approach. The Jnana approach says that first thing is very clear that everything is happening because of God's will. So in the Jnana approach we say, I am the self. I don't act. So what acts? The Prakriti acts or the nature acts. So the idea is there are two entities. One is the self and another is the non-self called the Prakriti or the nature. So this nature is what? Nature is not about this beautiful scenery. Nature is not just about mountains and rivers and trees. Nature is anything other than the self. Anything other than the self is called nature. So nature is doing. I am only an observer. So there is one verse in the Gita which says, Navadvare pure dehi naiva karyan. The person who is a jnani, he is like a person who is sitting in a city of 9 gates, referring to the human body. The human body is compared to a city with 9 gates. So various openings of the body are considered the gates, and the body is called the Pura. So Navadvare Pure Dehi. So he is sitting there and he is observing things. The body works. Now that's the point, very, very subtle to understand, that how does a man who has that jnana approach work? Because he doesn't seem to be attached to anything, and yet he is working. Why is he working? It is believed that he works only for the good of the world. He doesn't have any personal self-interest in anything. But he does have some immediate, they call it as Vyavaharika Satya, or some practical means or things to do. Okay, I have to conduct a class, or I have to do this thing. Is also kind of a motive. But this motive is only a temporary motive. Main thing is he wants to only do good to others. Such a person is known as the Jivan Mukta. One who is living, and yet he is not dependent on any conditions which make the living possible. Which means he is free. He is independent. He doesn't have any conditioned existence. Though body means there is existence, and he is undergoing that experience with the body. So how a Jivan Mukta lives is something which no scriptures can fully explain, but they say yes, it is possible. And it is happening in the case of a few people. So whenever we speak of a great sage does not mean dress, you see. Sage does not mean the name. Sage means a person who has attained that stage. Dress and name and things like that are only secondary details. So the person who has attained that state, he could be an ordinary housewife or even a maid servant, or he could be a chairman of a company, whosoever. Whosoever has attained that state, he is a source of happiness. He is a source of happiness, and Shankaracharya compares such a person to the spring season. The spring season, when it comes, it brings greenery everywhere, flowers everywhere, kind of wonderful atmosphere is created. There is a rejuvenation in the nature. So likewise, it just brings happiness everywhere. He doesn't have a personal motive for that. So this is the Karma Yoga from the Jnana angle. There is a third approach, which is actually a combination of these two. And in the Gita we find this referred to. First thing about Gita, third chapter of the Gita speaking about Karma Yoga, Krishna says that no one in this world can be without action. Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtatya karma krita. A karma krita, without doing an action. No one is there. The very act of living is an action. For example, if a person is breathing, that's also an action. So, very act of living is action. What he is trying to refer to is this, that since it is not possible to be without action, convert your whole life into a kind of yoga, a kind of giving, a kind of pouring yourself for something higher. So he mentions about yajna. In the third chapter, we have a lot of discussion about yajna. So yajna concept is to be understood where actually both these get fused very well. The word yajna seems to bring to our mind so many yajnas we see in temples, fire ritual, where you light up a fire and you take a lot of things which are prescribed in the Karma Kanda section of the Vedas or Agamas, where they speak of you should offer this, you should offer that into the fire with appropriate mantras. So that seems to be the picture of a yajna in our mind. But the word yajna is not just that. Yajna means something more. Yajna means actually giving. External action is only a representation of that giving. It refers to the cyclic movement of life. Everything in this world works in a cycle. See, there is water is taken from the rivers or the ocean. It's just taken by the sun rays and they become clouds. And afterwards they return to the ocean by rain. So it's just like a cycle. So whole life is like that. We take things from the world, and if we don't give it back, we become like a pond which has got no coming and going of the water, and that becomes stinking. A person who is extremely rich and does not know how to give, his life becomes like that of a stinking pond. He only knows how to take. He does not know how to give. And unless you give, life does not enter into life force. It does not enter into you and create a sense of joy. It only makes you more and more worried, more and more insecure, possessive, that this will go one day from me. We should keep things with us as far as we need, but when our needs are over, we should give things to others. That is the idea of yajna. So I get something from the society, I get something from the nature, I use it, but I don't become very much indulging in just accumulating things. I give it back in some form. It could be in the form of money, or it could be in the form of service, or it could be that I give some time to somebody, or I give some sympathy, some love, something I give back. And this giving back is called the first principle of higher living. In the Purusha Suktam, there is a mention about it. In the Purusha Suktam, the verse says, Yajnena yajyamayajanta deva tani dharmani prathamanyasam. This is the first dharma. Tani dharmani prathama. Prathama means first. This is the first dharma or first, let's say, duty. So, because dharma has got several translations or connotations, duty is one of them. So, the giving dharma, what is that? Yajnena yajyamayajanta deva. All this is kind of an exchange is happening between us and the society, between us and the nature, between us and others. Don't stop it. Go on giving it. This is the first thing. You receive things from others, you receive food from others. You see, if I ask you, do you have your food? You say, yes. From where did you get food? People say, I bought it from the store. I got these things and then I cooked it up and I ate. Actually, it is not so. You go back to the food chain. So the food is created by nature. There is a whole chain of things involved in that. There is a farmer involved in that. There is a scientist who has worked to improve certain equipments and ways of doing farming. There is a transportation involved in that. So many people are involved in bringing the food to our doorstep. So the whole cycle, and nature is playing an important role in that. So this cycle has to be kept up. By offering my services, my whatever good I can do, whatever has come to me, let me keep what is necessary for me. But then, beyond that, let me not hold it. Of course, certain sense of security everybody will like to keep for a rainy day, that's fine. But beyond that, try to give to others. The more you give, the more actually you bring in happiness in your life. Because that's the nature of life. I think somewhere in the Rig Veda it comes. There's a famous verse about that. It says that happiness comes to him from whom happiness goes to others. It's like a circuit. So you give the happiness to others and it comes back to you. You give joy to others and it comes back to you. The very act of giving, it brings you back something. But we are not doing it for the sake of future expectation that I'll get back something, that's why I'm giving. Not because of that. That's secondary. I give it because there is a joy in giving in that. So whatever is possible. So this yajna concept is very much elaborated in the third chapter of the Gita. Those of you who have read the third chapter, fine. If you have not, please read it. The third chapter deals with various yajnas which are mentioned. And they are not the yajnas mentioned about how a person is to do some fire ritual. It's rather, anything can be a yajna. Whatever action. For example, what we are doing is also kind of it's a kind of a yajna. We are giving back what we have learned. We are sharing with others. Now that you are having the study circle, it's a kind of a yajna. That let us give back. Because if you keep it with you, it will, as if start stinking. So when we give it to others, it comes back to us in so many ways. For example, I remember one of our friends once speaking about it, saying, when you do service to society, actually you do service to yourself. Because the society is a place where you live in. And if the society improves, or the world around you improves, or it develops, it brings back the result to you. You benefit from it. You are able to pursue your higher life or whatever things you want to pursue in a much better way. So this giving is a part of the life, the giving of things to others. These days we speak of corporate social responsibility, CSR. I think this idea originally comes from the yajna concept. And the yajna was considered, the original Vedic times, they did not have much of worship in terms of temples. Everyone had a small yajna at home. and it was considered that just to be devoted to that, that's sufficient. Idea of temples, of worships, it came much later. So far as I know, it started after the Buddhist arrival or Buddhism coming into picture, because Buddhism brought a lot of temples. So it is the Buddhism which brought in so many public celebrations. It was not so earlier. Not that it is bad to have that. I'm just referring to a historical fact. So the point is this. Point is that we should be able to make our life into a yajna, that I am able to give everything to others. So let me conclude that first we have the idea of bhakti, where I offer everything to the Lord. The bhakti approach to karma yoga. Karma yoga is a means for self-realization. It is converting all our actions into an act of devotion if we are taking the bhakti approach. Or it becomes the jnana approach, where I am not the doer, I am only an observer. I am just observing myself, the prakriti is doing, but then whatever I do, it has to be morally correct. It doesn't mean that I just take up things which are immoral and say I am doing karma yoga. Karma yoga is always doing something moral. That's very important. And then the yajna concept, where we offer everything to the Lord, or the source from where everything comes. And this giving back is what is actually called a cycle of life keep going on. In the Gita language, everything seems to have every element or every activity in the world has to have a presiding deity. They call it Devata. So that Devata is doing something to you. For example, the Agni Devata does something to you. You should take care of the Agni. It's a holistic approach to life. It is just taking the nature along with you. Not just nature, the whole world around you. So the yajna concept, in a way, tries to bring in bhakti and jnana approach. But we are independently, whichever we want to take up. The point is this, that there should be a certain higher spiritual goal in life, and we must hold on to that. We must pursue it. Bhakti also includes repeating God's name or doing puja. That's also one part of the bhakti. But I may not do puja, but I offer everything to the Lord. I do it as a worship. Suppose you do your research and you offer it to the Lord, that's equally a bhakti. Or I just carry on my activity with all the zeal and all that, whatever I require to do. At the same time, the results when they come, I'm not deeply affected by them. So that's how we bring in the karma yoga into our life, and that's what the source of lasting joy and lasting fulfillment is. So I think with this I shall wind up. If you have any questions, we shall discuss.
I have a question. Maharaj? Louder?
Yeah, just be louder.
So, Maharaj, you emphasize the idea of giving to others, right?
Yes.
So, more like it can be materialistic or spiritualistic, right? So, let's think about a hypothetical situation. Like when everyone is rich, what can we give in terms of materialistic nature? Like giving to others happens only when someone is poor, right? So, can that be achieved, like if we start just giving?
In Karma Yoga, you will find, Swamiji's Karma Yoga, you will find one discussion about it. He says helping others can be done at 3 levels: and materialistic or physical help, or intellectual help, and the spiritual help. So materialistic help is always having this limitation. So you can give the things to others, maybe you can give food to others, but that will last for a few hours. That man will be hungry again. So you have to make him, give him something which will We should make him stand on his own feet to educate him. That's intellectual help. But even this will not satisfy. So I mean, he says that until the very faculty of want is removed, we will still feel helpless. So that removal of the faculty of want is what we call spiritual help. So even if you have, as you said, hypothetically, everybody is rich, everybody has money and he doesn't need, he may not need materialistic things. He may need something else. He may have emotional needs. He may have a spiritual need. For example, he may have everything and yet he may say, no, I want, I have everything but yet there is no happiness in me. So how do I help him? So there it is the jnana which will help him. It is the giving of the knowledge of the scriptures that will help him. And you know, our Indian tradition, we have plenty of such stories where a king was considering, oh, life is not what I wanted it to be. Although I have everything, he is a king after all, and yet he is unhappy. I think recently there was a small kind of one story about it which came in the internet about a happy man's shirt. So a happy man's shirt. It was about, you know, it's a kind of putting an ancient story in today's contemporary terms. That ancient story is about Raikva. It is mentioned in the Chandogya Upanishad. So the Raikva was a cart puller. And the cart puller, though he was, but he was man of realization. So the king thought that he is the most powerful man. But then there were two birds which are flying over the king's palace and they were talking and the king could hear them and understand what they were talking. They said, Raikva is the most happiest man. So then king goes in search of Raikva. How can a cart puller be more happy than me? Because I am the king and I should have all the happiness because I have all material things with me. And then the Raikva, he goes and Raikva finally teaches him the knowledge of the self. So when we speak of giving to others, we should keep in mind that materialistic help is the first stage of giving. We have further stages of giving also.
Yeah, thank you, Maharaj. Like a small extension to this question, like
Yes.
is it ever possible that we all can reach to the highest level of spiritual happiness, like all the living creatures? Even if we start giving the spiritual help, if we take spiritual help from gurus, can we reach at some point of time all living creatures reach to that point?
That is called the ideal of Sarvamukti.
Is it?
That is giving mukti to all or giving spiritual happiness to all. Theoretically, yes. Theoretically, such a state was called the Satya Yuga. In Satya Yuga, or the age of Satya or truth, people just live their happiness. You know, it is believed, according to our tradition, it is said, in Satya Yuga, there were no entertainments. Why? Because the man needs entertainment because he becomes bored, he becomes monotonous. Because what he is doing, there is some kind of a conflict, so he wants to now take a break and wants to relax. But that was not so with them. For them, every activity was joy. So they did not need some extra thing to make them happy or joyful. So in Satyuga it said there was no Abhinaya, no Nritya, no Sangeeta of that time. No, that's one way of looking at it. Your question is that whether this help can be given to all, can all attain it? Our scripture says yes, it should be given to all. But even if you give to all, how many would take it? That's a different thing. So even if you offer food, all may not be hungry for that.
Thank you, Maharaj.
So my question is, like, which is It is not very clear to me what exactly is a good definition of karma with changing times.
Karma with the changing times.
Yes, for example, I mean, I find it very hard to place how doing science, for example, engaging maybe 10 hours of my day in doing science is anyway going to help me spiritually.
See, the karma is a concept which requires a lot of. It's a subtle concept. In the Gita itself, it is said, "Karmana gahano gatihi," which means karma is something very deep. So it also speaks of karma, vikarma, and akarma, three concepts. So karma in general we know is a right action, and that which is not the right action, which is let us say against the right action, is called vikarma, and akarma is non-action or not doing things. So one of our monks used to give this example. So there is this teacher. He goes to the school and he teaches, and he does it with all his sincerity, and he is devoted to his profession. This is called karma. Another teacher goes and he simply sits, he doesn't teach at all. He just whiles away his time and asks the students, "Do your work, I'm happy, you do your work." So this is akarma. And there's another teacher who goes and he tells the students, "I'm going to teach you," let's say he's teaching mathematics. He teaches them half of the theorem and tells them, "The remaining half you can learn by coming to the tuition center which I run. In the evening you can come and learn from that." That is vikarma. So karma, akarma and vikarma. So we have to see what we are doing. It requires, ultimately fine-tuning of our understanding. In Swamiji's one lecture, he says, our only karma in the world is to be unselfish. That is the only karma we have. We have no other duties. He puts it that way also. But then, how do we reach that state? Because right now it doesn't seem to be so. You have to do so many things. So keep thinking about this and keep seeing your motives, trying to understand your motives. You see, my understanding or my experience in these motives is this. It's like archaeological digging, excavation. So when you do the excavation, you remove the first layer, you said you have attained something, you have reached some point. But then you say, no, there is some further layer. Then you remove the second layer, and third layer, and fourth layer. Likewise, in our life also, we think this is what my motive is. Fine, my motive is to do this. But when I go on removing, finally I find the end layer is actually ignorance. The ignorance of my real self. That's why we have to keep refining our understanding. Then we will discover that what we considered was my duty was actually not my duty. Or what I said I cannot live without, I can very much live without. What I thought was a perfect need for me was actually not a need. It was just a presumed need. It was actually a kind of a greed. I thought it was a need. So one has to keep on fine-tuning one's understanding.
Maharaj, I have a question. So in Karma Yoga, when a Karma Yogi is not selfish, I'll put it as two different questions. I think both are related. So when a Karma Yogi does not have a motive in some sense, then how does he choose which action to do? That is one. And the second one is, can a Karma Yogi be deeply interested in something, like being interested in music or being interested in doing research or science or maths or any particular thing? So isn't that some kind of attachment or selfishness?
As to the first question, that whether he could be Say it again.
Um,
First one.
so, when a karma yogi is unselfish, how does he choose to do any action? Why should he
Okay.
even do an
Because
action?
every action requires choosing.
Correct.
I do this or I don't do this. So how does he choose? There's one thing very dominantly clear in the Karma Yogi's case is that an ideal Karma Yogi is that he chooses unselfishness is the guiding motive in his life. So what by doing which I will be doing an unselfish thing. But the thing is, you will find again in Swamiji's Karma Yoga, nothing in this world is absolutely unselfish. Nothing is absolutely free from some injury. For example, Swamiji gives this example when I am speaking. While I speak, I am killing the small microbes which are anyway getting killed when I speak. This very action. So those, while it may be speaking of a good thing to you, but those microbes will be feeling bad about it. See, your speaking is killing me. So actually, life itself therefore becomes evil. Because the very act of living means crowding out something, crowding out some other forms of life. So if I am eating, somebody else is not eating, he perhaps could have got that food. So there will be a certain amount of violence, in that sense always there, certain amount of selfishness. So a person should always keep the larger good in his mind. The larger good, what I can do. In the Gita we find, I think in the last chapter it comes, that wherever there is light, there will be darkness. When we say there is, say everything is relative, see in this word, when we say that something is sweet, it is possible only if I have taken something which is not sweet. Then only I can say this is sweet. Because there is a comparative statement. Likewise, happiness in that sense is also in relation with something which is not happy or unhappiness. We are trying to go to a state, or we are trying to speak of a state, the ideal is, which is beyond this ideal idea of happiness and unhappiness. There is a state of ekarasata in Sanskrit. It's called ekras. Ekras means in single state. This we find illustrated in the life of Lord Rama. You see, the example of Rama that is given is this. In all the centers of the Ramakrishna mission, we chant Ram Nam Sankirtan on Ekadashi days. So this Ram Nam Sankirtan is first, before the Sankirtan starts, there is a number of verses which are chanted. They are basically from Tulsi Ramcharitmanas and also some from the Valmiki Ramayana. So one of the verses, it speaks of saying that I meditate on the face of Rama, one who remained smiling and happy when he was told that he will be made the crown king tomorrow, and one who did not show any change on his face. He was calm and silent and peaceful and yet happy. And also when he was told that you have to go to the forest for so many years, yet he remained calm and quiet and without any unhappiness. Ekras, we are saying. Remaining is that state. So does it mean that I lose all the excitements in life? Actually, this idea of excitement needs some examination. What do we mean by being excited? Very often in today's world, you will find people are like a pendulum. In pendulum, you see, it goes from this end to the other end. On one side, they are excited, very, very excited. The moment they are very, very excited, it goes to the other end, where it goes to we go to being very dejected. Depression. Depression is so very common. So these two, between being very excited and being very depressed, they seem to work very much. So we are trying to reach that. That's the idea that is given to us. And your second question, First is about choosing which action, and second, how he carries on his action, what he chooses. Is that the question?
No, but the second question is about so can one be deeply interested in something like music or some science or some subject, and then
He can.
at the same time be karma yogi? Because isn't it selfishness in some sense? I'm selfish. I enjoy doing maths, for instance, and that's why I want to do it. Where does the
Then
idea of unselfishness come here?
he should be still having some idea of bringing good out of that interest to others. But at the same time, even a karma yogi will have a very strong impact of the samskaras on him. Say, for example, it is said of Samarth Ramdas, the great guru of Shivaji. He was very fond of taking some kind of a masala after food, what we call as mukha shuddhi. So he used to take all his life. And absolutely, although he was a man of realization, these few things I always keep. So if you read the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, you will find that Sri Ramakrishna, it is described that after listening to a bhajan or to a Sanskrit verse, he enters into a spiritual state because samadhi. And then after some time he comes down, and when he is coming down, he says many things. He says, either he says, I like to have water, or he says, I like to eat this sweet. Why? Why does he say this? Person coming down from that state, why should he take that? It is because he has to keep his mind on the body. A certain amount of ego is required for that. Without that, he cannot. There has to be a certain amount of, but that ego or that something is not really very harmful. So Sri Ramakrishna himself gives an example of a rope. You just to keep a rope and it has been burnt. Although it has the shape of a rope, but actually doesn't have any quality of a rope. If you keep the rope and burn it, it will be just a heap of ashes. You can just blow it off. In the same way is the state of a person who has attained that state. Although he seems to have these likes and dislikes, he seems to have this thing, it doesn't really go very deep into his mind.
Maharaj, one more question, Maharaj. So, among the different yogas, so it said that every yoga can lead a person to God realization. So, if we see historically, we have so many examples for people who have attained God by practicing bhakti, by practicing gnana, and by practicing Raja Yogas. But I can't think of any historical example of someone who has attained God just only by Karma Yoga, without any other yoga. So
Only by?
Only by Karma Yoga, without any other yoga. So can you give an example, Maharaj?
Swami says Buddha was the greatest example of that.
So wasn't Buddha meditating, and can we say that his path was more of Raja Yoga or Gnana Yoga because he was always debating? How can we say that he? So I'm not talking about someone who has attained God realization and then continues to do unselfish. That is Jivan Mukta. So I'm talking about someone who has attained Gnana attained God through the path of karma.
Okay. So one example that Swami gives is of a lady given in the Mahabharata who was a housewife and she was devoted to service of her family. But she was doing it in such a spirit of sacrifice and unselfishness that she had attained it. It is known as the Vyada Gita. It is there in the Mahabharata. Not only that, if you read the lives of many of the saints in the Maharashtra tradition, there have been many saints. Most of them were just people of the world. One was a gardener, one was perhaps a cobbler. They just carried on their work with the spirit of detachment and the service to God. And they were all men of realization.
Okay, if there are no other questions, maybe we can close. On behalf of everyone here, thank you very much, Swamiji, for taking time of your busy schedule. Also accounting for the time zone difference and taking time to set up Skype and everything. We hope to have more sessions with you in the days to come. Thank you very much.
Pleasure talking to you all.
We'll close with some.
Yeah.
Swamiji, we'll do some Shanti mantras and close.
Yes. Then we just do Shanti and we'll just
Okay.
close. That's it. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.
Harihi Om Tat Sat.
Hari Om Tat Sat.
So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Swami. Maharaj, we should thank you for taking time, Maharaj, for taking time and setting up things. And
Yes. We'll meet again.
yes, Maharaj.
Yes.
Namaste.
I will close it down.
I'll close it on this.